Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name's Adrian, and as you can see, I've got another guest with me today. I've got Than, the co-creator of DarkSpace, game for Shadowdark, based in space, obviously.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, before I sort of get into my barrage of questions, do you want to just sort of introduce yourself and just, you know?
Yeah, so like Adrian said, I'm Than Gibson. I am one of the co-creators of DarkSpace. My co-creator Derek White and I put together sci-fi rules for Shadowdark that can be played, like Adrian said, kind of on your own, but they do use the Shadowdark rules. You do have to have Shadowdark to play DarkSpace. But the idea is that we wanted to give people sci-fi for using this rules light system. And it's not one specific genre of sci-fi. You can play the survival horror sci-fi, which is I think what most people are thinking of when they think what sci-fi Shadowdark is going to be. But really, you can play whatever you want to play.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd just tease it in the background. We'll get more into it, but because you sent these to me a couple of weeks ago, and you've got another book out as well, haven't you? The Void Echoes that's out.
Yes,
which again
that's
we'll touch on that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yep.
Yeah. Before I get into any of that though, I'd like to find out your first sort of gaming experience. So, because I've actually had one that wasn't a D&D guide the other day. Which...
Okay, that's impressive. My first gaming experience was D&D. It was the red box D&D, the old Larry Elmore front cover box. 5th grade, so that would have put me around 10. And a kid brought it to school. He brought his older brother's copy to school, and this would have been 1988. So we were still, I live in the South in the US, and we were still kind of coming out of the satanic panic. And so he brought it to school in his duffel bag, and we all went and looked at it in his duffel bag during recess, and it was like we had contraband. We were all gathered around it. The teachers probably thought we were looking at something much more serious. And it was just a game, and so that was my first. But then I did quickly jump out of that into other RPGs because it was quickly the 90s, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was everything. And so my friends and I found the Palladium Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, and we went from basic red box to Palladium with no step in between. And so really kind of dug in on the crunchy rules after that, and then jumped around Marvel superheroes, Star Wars, Shadowrun, really started dipping our toes in a lot of different things. And didn't come back around to D&D until college, honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of similar. I'm just looking at a shelf. That's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles box sets, isn't it? Next to, is that Heroescape?
It's Hero Quest.
Hero Quest, sorry,
yeah. The Ninja Turtles. It's the adventure game system.
That's the dice one where you share dice with the people.
Where you share dice. Yeah,
such a great mechanic. I wish more games did that.
Such a cool system. Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. And Star Wars, which is the first edition.
Yes.
Is that the remastered one, or was that the original West End?
That is the reprint that Fantasy Flight did. 5-6 years ago. I have long since lost my copy. I had the original ones, like the ones you've got there, and then the second edition was just sort of the blue cover that had Vader on the front.
That one.
Well, that's the last edition. There was one in between. But I loved the D6 West End system, and it has some influence on DarkSpace as well. So
it seems to be coming back a bit as well, because from a Star Wars point of view, I don't know, because obviously we had that middle ground, which was the Wizards of the Coast 3.5, which yeah,
it's all right.
I think the problem is
every version of a Star Wars role-playing game has some merit to it. They bring something to the table. It did. I think that it tried to do the ship combat better than West End did. Honestly, West End had it. Wizards took that and kind of perfected it a little bit. But then everything else about it wasn't great. It was very unbalanced. If you played a Jedi, you couldn't really run with anybody else because it was the power was so different. Yeah,
but saying that, the West End Games was like that. If you could become a Jedi, it was like everyone's like, okay, well, go on then. We'll just see.
Yeah, you go over there. We're gonna go do our smuggling mission, which was very much like the movies, right? That they intentionally got Luke away from Han and Leia because he would have just wiped the floor with everybody.
Yeah. But I think that's what it did. But because I remember we played the West End Games for years, and it had one of the funnest mechanics that was, like you say, ship mechanics was really difficult, and that was if you were piloting a ship and you were shooting and the ship was dodging, you got to add the dodge successes to the difficulty to hit, which makes sense. But it basically meant that if you either dodge or you take the hit and shoot back.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was good because who doesn't love rolling 5,000 d6?
D6, yeah.
Such a great. But 3.5, I think the worst part of that is the hit points, because blasters don't work with hit points. Like you said. And then we've got the Fantasy Flight version, which I so wanted to love.
Yeah,
and all of my friends hated.
Yeah, it does the cinematic better than the others have done, but people look at those odd dice and there's just something like, oh, I'm out. Like I don't understand these dice. I don't want to.
I always describe it as I eat Skittles, so I don't roll them.
Right.
But was any of the Star Wars then the influence for going into dark space? Is that?
Yeah, it was. So, I mean, I grew up, I was born in 78. So I was a Star Wars baby. I remember very vaguely my parents taking me to see Empire when I was like 3. And I had the action figures. I had, all the Kenner stuff. And I grew up with Star Wars. When I got, older, obviously you kind of shift priorities and things like that. And so a lot of my adult role playing has been, D&D and fantasy, just because the 5e boom. But my kids were starting to get into Star Wars. Mandalorian came out, that really kind of got them reinvigorated into the idea. Before it was kind of dad's thing, and now it's like they've got their thing, and they started watching Clone Wars and Rebels and things like that. And then Derek actually had the idea about doing sci-fi for Shadowdark, and brought it to me, and I was like, I've always wanted to show my kids Star Wars role playing, but I know that they're going to look at West End and all the D6s and all the pips and bumping bonuses up, and they're gonna walk away. So I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's see if we can make sci-fi dark space or sci-fi Shadowdark, and it did. It had definitely has some influence in there, but it's at the same time, Derek wasn't a huge Star Wars kid. I mean, he's about 10 years older than me, and so he grew up with the Star Wars zeitgeist, but he read a lot of like traditional sci-fi pulp, and his sci-fi RPG experience was Traveler, so he wanted to go back to Traveler, and so we've got this nice blend of both when we kind of put the system together.
Because that's I always class that as a sort of college type game, Traveller, because you can't dip into that.
No.
You know, and you could play it for the rest of your life and still not touch probably a tenth of. I don't even think even probably that much. You know, there's it's so massive, and you know what?
It is.
Is it Mongoose who've got it now, haven't they?
I think
the books look so nice.
They do. They do. And the Traveller community is amazing. I mean, I've putting DarkSpace out, we've inadvertently kind of been adopted by the Traveller community a little bit, because they want to play sci-fi. The Traveller community wants to play sci-fi, but even they acknowledge sometimes it's a lot to get Traveller going. Yes. And so we've gotten pulled into a lot of the Traveller forums and social groups, and they're awesome, but they go deep. They go real deep.
But this is what we keep coming back to with Shadowdark, and what Kelsey's created is, she's got this wonderful blend of old school stuff with modern light mechanics that's even lighter than 5e, that takes all the best bits of 5e. It's it's got some faults like every system, but we all like homebrewing anyway. So the bits that we don't like, we ignore.
Right.
But it sort of just put, like you say, with the Traveller community, they're going, I want to play Traveller, but I can't get friends involved in it. It's 2d6. You've got to add things together. That's complicated. It's not that complicated, but it still is. You can die in your background. How can you die while creating a background?
Well, you're making your character. You can die.
Or not be what you want to be, which is
exactly
actually one of the nicest wrinkles in Traveller.
Yeah, it is.
But that's not for everyone, because people are.
It's not.
Quite it's controlling the wrong thing. They have an idea of what they want to play, and if they don't mind things going wrong when they're playing. Well, actually, saying that, I know a lot of people that still cheat on dice rolls, and I'm like,
I know
why.
It's more fun to fail.
Yes.
And so, but you're right. I think as a hobby, we've gotten away from the idea of a completely randomized character and you go in and play because you want to, and maybe it's video games that's part of it. Like, you have a preconceived notion of what you're going to play. So you want to have a preconceived notion going into this game. So my session zeros are so important, because you can talk about, hey, this is the kind of character I want to play. Just rolling up a random character is a little foreign to folks these days. I mean, but Shadowdark has brought that back. I mean, the idea that you could roll your 3d6 down the line and get trash, and
that happens a lot.
And not play that that rogue that you were planning 6 levels on to get the best sneak attack. I don't know, it's freeing in some ways. And so we made sure we did that with DarkSpace as well.
Yeah, but I also, I'm going to choose my words carefully, because this is going out on the internet. I think YouTube is partly at fault for that, because there's so many channels tell people, and I've done it on some of my, like, speak to the games master, find out what sort of world he wants to play, make sure your character fits in the world. I'm like, well, I don't fit into Earth very well, me as a human. I know I don't. My wife's constantly telling my kids with all my isms and stuff. So the world, you kind of fit the world to yourself, if that makes sense. And that's what Shadowdark does, or any game with a random character. You know?
Yeah.
Why do all parties have to be friends? Why do you have to have a common bond to want to? We'll all be the same alignment because we want to go into the dungeon. I love the fact of going into a dungeon with an evil person, thinking, hold on, is he going to stab me in the back? Because we've all played Warcraft, where you're fighting something and someone's opening that chest, and you're like, what are you doing? We're all dying here. And he's like, rolling. Just go, I got a sword.
And that's we can probably get into motivation a little bit more, but that was why we did we flipped alignment a little bit and created motivations instead, because of that very reason. People might have a particular viewpoint on law versus chaos, but your motivation is very different. I'm just trying to survive, so I'm going to do whatever makes the best sense for me in that moment. I've had survivor characters very, very much side with the vile characters in playtests, because they're like, look, this is what's going to ensure I make it out of this situation alive. Yeah. Is it, in a normal circumstance, if this was presented to me in theory, would my character have done that? Yeah, probably not. But I've got to take that route instead. So we put these. So you've got motivations up here. So we you can still play with Kelsey's alignment system if you want to. You can still play lawful neutral chaos. We just provided an alternate motivation system instead, with survivor, vile, and virtuous. And the idea there being that you get a starting bonus that kind of helps you along the way a little bit. And then it also gives you a gameplay effect. What will you do in the game to get a luck token? And it gives you specific things. So like the survivor, they get a luck token whenever they're acting in a way that exemplifies resilience and adaptability. So it just gives you a little bit more of a role playing note for when you're playing your character and making those decisions in the dungeon, right? That was the idea behind that, and that also allows you, if you're playing space opera, if you're playing a Star Wars with the serial numbers filed off, law versus chaos might be fine. But if you're wanting to play more of like a cyberpunk or like an alien or something like that, then you're gonna, law and chaos don't matter. But are you virtuous? Are you gonna stick to the rules and the concepts of justice and moral rightness, or are you gonna stab them in the back?
I'm in a Fallout campaign. Well, it's a campaign, but a series of one shots. So all the time I've role played, I don't know if you're very similar, that I've always had the same group for sort of 35 years. We're all mates since college, university. We still get together twice a week, Sundays, Tuesdays. Rare does it not happen. Mostly over Roll20, sometimes face to face, the local group, because people keep moving away and getting married and divorced and coming back. Thank God. Not, but you know what I mean, because it keeps the groups going. But I started role playing with strangers, so to speak, now, and I'm in this Fallout game, and it's just gone live on YouTube. And I'm not going to say how it all ended up. We were just fighting this creature, and it was quite difficult. And one of the guys, she was like, I'm off. He just mid combat, one person was down, the other guy ran for it, and there's just me and the robot like going, we're so dead. And it just made for such an interesting, I'm not going to say what happened, but but you don't get that when you're playing with friends. You all either stay and die, because you kind of ignore your motivations, you ignore your alignments, because you've got that weird meta game thing with your mates. So and it doesn't happen very often that you're willing to betray your friends.
We had our first kind of convention push for this was GaryCon, and in one of my games I had a whole crew, had a full 8-person table, and the crew had gotten into a battle with this mech tank thing, and it had launched warheads at them. Several of them had gone to zero, and the captain actually had died. But the
I love it when captains die.
I know it. The virtuous wise triadian character, which is what we call our meta power, the triad, took him to this place where there was a nexus of power, and he was like, can I use this nexus of power with my triad ability to bring him back to life? And I was like, sure, let's do it. You wouldn't have necessarily gotten that with a home campaign, because they wouldn't have taken the risk in the first place because you're, like you said, you're all kind of in it together. But this was at a table. It was the last thing that happened with a bunch of strangers, and it turned into this like great role playing moment. Very much ended up very like Wrath of Khan, where or Spock kind of a thing where he basically kind of gives a little bit of himself to bring his captain back. It was cool. It was really neat. And yeah, like you said, that's the kind of thing that happens with a table of strangers. So I definitely, if you can get to cons and play with strangers, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Or horrific, which was my experience.
Or that too. But you still have fun at the end of the day.
You do. There's always one round the table, in my experience, that has to control what everyone else does. And I'm like, you just feel like, because now I'm older, because when you're younger, you'd be like, oh, you're intimidated. Now I'll be like, do you know what? Just play my character. I'll go and stand over there. So how are you finding then doing cons with, the interaction with people? Is it well, not working, but if you know what I mean, what's the sort of buzz around it? Because, on the Facebook page, there's a lot of buzz around the book.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, GaryCon was, like I said, was our first big one. Derek had actually been at Philadelphia Expo, Gaming Expo, last January, and was sort of the soft launch. We had just launched it, like the week or two before that, and that reception was great. He ran what became the first adventure in Void Echoes at Page, but GaryCon, the response was fantastic. GaryCon is sort of becoming the Shadowdark home base con. It's Kelsey's home con. Arcane Library was a major sponsor of the convention this year, so there was a massive Shadowdark presence, and so we had the Shadowdark community there, kind of bolstering us. But every one of our tables sold out. Every time I ran demos, people showed up and played. I think we sold something like 50 some odd copies there, just like hand to hand, like people playing the table and then being like afterwards, like, hey, can I buy a copy? And, we pull one out of our bag. And that's kind of helped bump us up through, the gap between cons. We're going to be at Origins next here in June. And again, we'll be running some games, and we'll actually have a booth. Derek is a gaming chaplain. And so he has a booth for that, and we'll be selling DarkSpace out of that booth. But that'll be our next one. And already had a lot of people, asking like, hey, where can we find you? That sort of thing. And then, we'll just see where it goes from there. We know we're going to be at Gamehole Con. We know we're going to be at Page again next year. So there's, a lot of opportunity to meet people in person. And it's been really great. Very, very supportive. Like you said, the Facebook group, the social media interaction has been great. We've got a great community that's kind of forming around the game, but getting to meet folks in person has been really awesome. Yeah.
Cool. So we kind of moved on. So what I want to do now is bring it all the way back to DarkSpace. Meeting Derek, starting ideas. Where did it sort of? I know you've talked basically how it came from, but
a little bit. So with Derek's gaming chaplaincy, he uses RPGs to kind of do some spiritual development kind of stuff with his congregation, and also through some workshops and things that he's done. And he a lot of times is working with folks who are not heavy role players. They're not in the hobby. And so he wanted something that was lightweight. And Shadowdark, Kelsey and I are kind of go back quite a bit, several years before Shadowdark. So I knew that Shadowdark was kind of coming out, and I said, hey, be on the lookout for this. Like, Shadowdark's going to be the thing that you're going to want to use when it comes out. And he very quickly kind of swapped over to it. And then he started having folks ask, could we do this with sci-fi? I'm more of a sci-fi person. Don't really get into the whole like Lord of the Rings kind of a thing. And he tried a few things. Traveler obviously was what he knew, but that was way too crunchy. I think he tried what's the Kids in Spaceships, or whatever the Kids on Bikes equivalent for sci-fi was. I think he did something with that, and then it worked. But he was like, I really wish there were sci-fi rules for Shadowdark. And there were a couple before us. There were some people that attempted to do things with it before, and he said, could we do this? And I'm the forever GM in the group. So I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm at this point very familiar with the Shadowdark. I'm pretty sure I can do this. And so we just started kind of bouncing ideas off each other, and it very quickly kind of picked up. It went from being like, okay, let's just put out some basic rules, to let's make a book and do our own classes, because we were quickly learning, like, the Shadowdark don't quite work. They're broad, but they're not broad enough, and you don't always need a wizard in sci-fi. You don't always need a priest in sci-fi. So, like, what does that look like instead? Well, it's the Force or psychic powers or something like that. We started looking at the spells. I'm like, well, we don't really want to just slap a cover on the spell list. We want to do something different. And so then we started, okay, well, if we're going to rework spells, then we're going to have to rework the spellcaster classes. We're going to have to rework the spellcaster classes. Let's rework everything. And that's how we kind of fell back on archetypes, which is something that I borrowed from D20 Modern.
I was going to ask. So, yeah.
It's definitely kind of a call back to the old D20 Modern, which is, I think, called Everyday Heroes now. Somebody picked that up. But the idea is you get these sort of heroic archetypes: the strong, the quick, the tough, clever, wise, and charming. And but I said, this is going to work great. We can do these archetypes for sci-fi. It'll work really well. But my problem I always had with D20 Modern was the archetypes were too broad. A quick character could mean a lot of things, and there wasn't enough in that class, in that D20 Modern class, to say, this is what I am. It just kind of was just a flavor kind of a thing. And so I said, well, we've already got backgrounds. What if we tied backgrounds into archetypes? And so we looked at the background list and reworked a little bit, took some of the ones that were more fantasy out of it and put some sci-fi things in there. And I was like, okay, so now you could be a strong soldier, you could be a quick soldier, you could be a clever soldier. Those are all very different things. But you very quickly have this, rule system for your archetype that gives you certain bonuses. You've got your background that gives you advantage because that's what you're good at. And you've got this sort of, quick shortcut to what kind of character am I? It's just very, very quick, very lightweight. And it works really well. If I do say so myself, you can make a lot of different characters with that. So that was where we came up with archetypes, and then the species kind of came out of the same thing. We didn't want to limit, obviously, people to the Shadowdark species or ancestries. You can play those if you want to play a space elf or a space dwarf. If you want to go, Warhammer 40K and play space elves, you absolutely can do that. But we wanted to really expand it because you could play pretty much anything in sci-fi. And so instead, we kind of gave you a start with a list of 20 traits that you can roll randomly on, or you can just pick from. And they kind of cover the spectrum of what you probably would see with your, at least your most common sci-fi species, whatever that background is, whether it's a Star Trek or a Star Wars or Farscape or something random. You're probably going to get one of these. And then we do also tie in, you can still play human, and the humans still get the ambitious trait from Shadowdark, so they get that extra roll on the talent table. And then we added in androids as their own species. And when they get life support, which basically means they don't have to eat or drink, they don't have to breathe, but they do still have to charge up. And then as we were kind of building that out, we're like, okay, that's cool. We've got androids now. But what if we want to play like that character? Well, if we want a chopper or an R2-D2 that is just a Swiss Army knife of things. And so we built out another archetype called the multifunction android, where you can take the android species and then take the multifunction android archetype, and basically your talents are additional species traits. So you could get armored skin, you could get a weapon, you could get the technical knack trait that gives you a bonus when working with machinery, and so that lets you build out those specialized kind of droids. But you don't have to play the MFA archetype with android. You could be a clever android or a strong android. We've got our home campaign that has that we're using playtesting for. We actually have an interesting concept that we'll probably put. It's working fairly well right now, but we'll see how playtest goes. But the idea actually would be where you could have a different species and use multifunction android as your archetype and its power armor. So that's, like I said, we're playtesting
cyborgs.
That.
What about
cyborgs? Yeah.
Because do I get writing credit?
we have cybernetic implants as some of like the magic items.
Yeah.
But it totally could be you could use that for a cyborg. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So playtesting is going on with that one now, but like I said, it's so far we like the concept, and so it might be in the expanded rules when those come out.
Yeah, because it's the plan to do one big book. So would that include Void Echoes as well?
It would include the rules that are in Void Echoes. So Void Echoes was a zine we put out back in February for Zine Quest on Kickstarter, and it includes the adventure Root of the Problem that Derek wrote, along with some pre-made characters. But at the very beginning of the book, we actually added a couple of new rules because they were things that needed to come up in the adventure. We addressed zero gravity, which was not in the main book. I just didn't have space for it. We addressed space exposure. What does that look like? And we have a very limited vehicles section, just because you can pick up a Ford pickup truck in the adventure, and we needed something to at least address what vehicles look like. We're going to expand vehicles out for the final book, but yeah, it will be the expanded rules edition will include everything that's in the core rules, plus a game master section, which will include things like advice for setting tone and balance and lethality, but we'll also give you things like how do you build out a setting. That's something that I'm working on right now, kind of developing in the writing on it, is what I'm right now kind of coining as one-page settings. So if I want to play fantasy space opera a la Star Wars, here are the things between Shadowdark and DarkSpace that I need. If I'm wanting to play sci-fi space opera, The Expanse, Star Trek, something like that, then here's the difference between those two. I'm going to use these rules instead of these rules. We're not going to have this, but we'll have this. So we're going to do that for about a dozen different subgenres of sci-fi to kind of help you with that. We'll include more rules like zero G, low grav, vehicles, expanded ship building rules, because right now in the core rules, it's very much just like, hey, here's a couple of ships that you can play, and here's a couple of ways that you can upgrade them. But in the full expanded version, there will be rules for building your own ship from the ground up if you want to do that. And then, of course, we'll have more monsters, more items, like all of those good things, lots of random tables. So it's going to be, a pretty significant upgrade from just the core rules. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the sort of player page count, you kind of.
We're aiming for somewhere around double what we've got. So the core rules is 84, I think, give or take. And then, so we're aiming for 160 to 200, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. And is that going to be a full Kickstarter release?
That will be a full Kickstarter crowdfunding release of some form. The goal obviously would be that would be when we do a hardback edition. A lot of people have been asking for hardback of the core rules with print on demand. It's, in my opinion, it's our book's a little too thin for hardback right now. It doesn't look great in hardback, but we like it in the print on demand soft cover that you can get. You can get it through DriveThru RPG. You can also get print on demand through our own shop over at the DMing the World website, which is our press label. And all of that print on demand. There it is. Yep. There we go. And then hit that DarkSpace shop right there. Sign up for our newsletter, please.
No, I will do. But I was trying to do this first. Not very good at multitasking. Don't tell the lady folks that we're not good at it. Okay.
But you can buy it through our shop directly. If you like the idea, if you pick up the PDF off DriveThru, but you want to support us with print on demand, we get a better cut if it's through our own shop than through DriveThru RPG. So we always welcome that. But if you like the quality you get with DriveThru, obviously that's there as well. But we like it being that kind of soft cover, almost kind of like, manual you stick in your back pocket. We want to see these things like shoved into pockets and backpacks and get, dog-eared. We even put on the back, I don't have a physical copy here, but on the back cover of the book, we put the character sheet, just like the old Redbox edition. So you can photocopy it if you want to, or scan it. I guess scan it's probably what the kids know better now.
I still talk about photocopying a lot, and people, I'm sure they just skip on, not knowing what I'm on about.
What are you talking about? But and then if you get it through our site, we use Lulu for the print on demand. That has a nice glossy cover, and what we've discovered is that glossy cover on that character sheet you can use for dry erase. It was a nice kind of fun little thing, but we like it in that kind of soft cover edition. But people want to see hardback. They would like to see a hardback, on the shelf with their copy of Shadowdark. So that would probably come in that expanded edition. It just depends on what printing and shipping and tariffs
everything at this moment in time, because they're all on hold at this moment in time, so we're all good now for today. But a few weeks ago we weren't. How'd you get on with Lulu? Because I've only got a PDF copy of Shadowdark, and I'm sick to death of trying to run adventures off my PDF copy. So I went on to Lulu to create a copy, and all I've managed to do is get a big A4 size.
Oh no!
And I'm like, oh my! What have I done? What option have I pressed wrong to get this? And I'm so embarrassed to take it. I can't. I won't put it on my shelf. It looks utterly ridiculous. Nobody knows. Yeah. And it's nice because it's big letters, so I can read it well. But it looks ridiculous. So.
They can't, so they definitely can do A5.
They can.
So this is what the Boyd Echoes print on demand looks like.
Yeah,
you
that
get
is a nice and shiny, isn't it?
Yeah, nice and shiny, and the page quality is really good. We like it. Derek actually did what you did, and because you can reprint Shadowdark for your own personal use, He has a hard copy, but he wanted table copies of Shadowdark for his group. And so he went on Lulu and printed them off with this kind of same quality. They look great. And even in the soft cover, that Shadowdark size still translates very well. So
the issue is me being an idiot. This is the issue. But I've had a few, because our Lulu in this country is really quick.
Yeah.
Todd sent me over a copy of Horde Wars Advanced.
Yeah.
And actually, the Black Lodge guy sent me a copy of Shucked Oyster, and they talk about it in one of their videos. I got it in England before they got their copies to even go to their convention. I was like, "Ta-da! On my YouTube channel, I've got this."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Really? How have you got that?" But yeah, the print on demand I've got for Horde Wars down there, like you say, it's really glossy, really nice. And I thought, so I've backed, because I didn't do the original Kickstarter for Shadowdark. I was like, this is a scam. This will never catch on. I don't know what it is about me, but if someone tells me that something's popular and fashionable, I'm like, nah. I'm not. I don't like to follow stuff, and then. Most of my channels about it since discovering it a year after everyone else. I'm like, this is genuinely a very good game.
Yeah.
I've done the collectors full on the Kickstarter.
Oh, good.
So I'm now waiting for that. But I think I'm going to have to get one or two basic books, because I'm not going to take the collector's copy to my friends' houses.
Oh, yeah.
So I see them in the Facebook group. People have got and they're out at tables and I'm like, what are you doing? I don't
know if you can see, but I've got one of the Lich covers, one of the green covers from the original.
Oh, I see that about, and like that, you're mad. Why are you taking that
out? That's only left the house once, and that was to take it to Gary Con to get Kelsey to sign it. And then I brought it back.
I look after them more than my children.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But no, and that's actually, we so far, printing prices have been great with Lulu. We do still make a like I said, we get a better cut off of Lulu than we are with Drive-Thru right now.
That's good.
And like you said, they are in a lot of different countries. They allow for easy international, because if we tried to do it, local here, just have the the stock sent to us. Neither one of us have the room to have that kind of stock. We'd have to invest in a warehouse. But two, we can do drop ship printing for folks very quickly. We've had guys in New Zealand that have picked up copies. We've had folks in the UK. We've had folks in Canada. It just makes it so much easier, especially right now with the way shipping is. There's somebody that's local there that more than likely is going to get it to you quicker than we can. Yeah.
Do you know Jeffrey Jones?
Not the name.
No,
Jeff Jones.
He did the Dark Tower and
okay,
the Kickstarter with Zach Goins.
Yes,
and his Facebook page was full of, because he did what you just said, is he basically got the Kickstarter delivered to his house. And there's just a photo of these boxes in one of the rooms in his. I know, because your American houses are vast, aren't they? And
I've still got a household of 5. We don't have that many, that much space. Yeah.
But it's so funny looking at people that do this. A few years ago, I tried running a board game shop from my house. Just to sort of fuel the hobby and help and trying to get another business going. It didn't do very well, because you can't compete against your Zatus and Amazon and stuff. It was just didn't have a hope in hell. But my wife was like, really, more boxes of stuff? Where's this going? Because you have to order in bulk to get the discounts. And they just sat on board games for months on end.
Yeah, and that'd be the same with us for our stock. And so instead we print off anytime we go to a convention. We print off selling stock, and that's it. That's all we need to carry. It's a much it's a much easier step into self-publishing these days than it used to be. In 1999, 2000, I tried to self-publish a comic book, and because I got an English minor, art history or art background, had an artist I was working with, and we scrimped and saved every penny we had to try to, and probably I think borrowed some from our parents to try to self-publish this comic. And you had to order like 500 copies of the comic to get any type of decent print run. And then we sat on it for years because it didn't sell. And it was just the gateway into self-publishing is so much easier now.
Yeah. But there's also the internet, which back then is like you order 500. Like, how many friends do I know that will buy it? 6.
Yeah.
Right. So we've only got 494 to get rid of.
Yeah. We've sold over 500 copies of DarkSpace. And
amazing.
And that's almost completely internet sales. Like I said, we sold 50 physical at GaryCon. Everything else is online, and just never could have imagined that back then.
Yeah. So other than the sort of Kickstarter, are you working on anything else? Because I believe from my looking around, I couldn't find anything else that you'd created previously to this. Was this your first?
So I wrote a Dragonlance module that's on DM's Guild. It's called Dragonlance: The Horn of Kiri Jolith. I think it's just under me. I don't think it's under DMing the World Press. That was my first foray into actual publishing. Huge Dragonlance fan, grew up with it as well. And when they opened up the 5th edition license, wasn't thrilled with how that book came out, and I was like,
nobody was.
I think I can write a better Dragonlance adventure than this, and so I put one out, and it's sold decently. It's gotten some pretty good reviews. I've run it at GaryCon and conventions a couple of times, but that was my first official publishing. I've got DMing the World, which has just always been sort of my blog. Derek's adventure in Void Echoes was his first gaming publishing as well. So we're pretty, much newcomers. What are we working on now? I'm working very hard on the expanded rules. Derek is actually has written a second adventure, and that he's playtesting that now. And that's going to be in the next issue of Void Echoes. It's more of a space horror. And it is around asteroid mining, and so we'll have some rules in there about hex crawling on an asteroid. So he's just about to start kicking off public playtest with that through his Patreon. Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So Void Echoes, that's going to be like a regular is the idea of that's going to be a regular zine, monthly, bi-monthly, whatever it may be, or
we'd like to do quarterly with it, just with it being the first year, and maybe 2. But we're planning on doing another one for Zine Quest again, just because we got such good reception off of that last time. And Void Echoes will probably be where we publish any adventures that we write, and anything that looks more like a campaign setting will probably be in Void Echoes. We really wanted to try to stay as setting agnostic with the rule system as much as possible, because we want people to make their own. But that's also probably where we would put supplemental rules. We've had people ask already, could you do capital ships? Could you do Gundams? And we're like, yeah, you totally could. I don't know if I would ever put that in the core rules, because the core rules very much are about the crew, about a team, because it's based around the dungeon crawling adventure group, right? That's what the Shadowdark rules are based around. So that is as well. We wouldn't necessarily want to kind of muddy that, adding in capital ship warfare or mecha. but that's something that could totally go into Avoid Echoes at some point. So that's probably where we'll dabble in subgenres a lot as well.
Yeah, that's good. You're gonna have to do like separate films out, like you talked about earlier, like do a Firefly, like Void Echoes one and things.
Yeah, exactly. You can space western one. We'll do a sci-fi horror. We'll do a cyberpunk. I've already got some folks that are interested in kind of working on us with the cyberpunk one. So we've got quite a lot of ideas that we could go down the line with for Void Echoes, even after Expanded Rules comes out.
Yeah. Because that is the funny thing about Shadowdark. I'm finding on like the Facebook groups and stuff. Whenever anyone posts a new zine or anything, you don't get what I would class as the bitchiness, or because I've been a big fan of 5e for years. I don't overly enjoy the written campaigns that WotC have released, but as a system, I think 5e is a good system. I don't think it's amazing, but it's easy enough to homebrew issues. Because you do. But then, as a dyslexic, I've been homebrewing issues games for years. I didn't even know I was, because I thought I'd read the rules correctly. I get away with it. But the 5e community can be quite negative to new books and stuff, where you do see it now and again on the Shadowdark book, but it's very, very rare that you see not out and out total support for a new project of whatever whatever people are doing.
That's what's been great about this is the people that see it are like, oh, okay, I want that. Like, I think it's because Arcane Library is an indie press, and so there's this sort of indie press, for lack of a better word, punk style to it all. Like, hey, we're just gonna put a zine out. It might only be like 10 pages of something, but that's gonna be the new hot thing. And we're all in it together. I mean, that's like there was a question at GaryCon about, okay, DarkSpace has come out, and now there's like a sci-fi western that's kickstarting right now. There's a pirate one that's coming out. There's all these different subgenres that are coming out for it. Are we diluting the waters, or are we going to start competing subgenre? And honestly, no. I like what I'm seeing out of the Western Kickstarter. I like what I'm seeing out of the pirate Kickstarter. And if anything, I'm going to support them and say, hey, now, do you want to play Space Western? So go get their book and our book. And now you've got Space Westerns. You want to play Space Pirates? Go get the pirate book and our book. And so, like, rising waters, bring all ships up, right? That's kind of the idea with it. Is like it's the publishing community with Shadowdark is still so small that you very quickly start meeting folks and wanting to help each other.
Yeah. Because what we're going to end up with is riffs. We're going to take it back. Riffs is and because even Savage Worlds. Well, if you think about it, Savage Worlds is very much plug and play, and then you can just pull anything into anything else.
That was when we started talking about what we're going to do with DarkSpace. That was the first thing I thought. I was like, why not? Why not make Shadowdark this universal plug and play rule system? It's so lightweight. And it was very, like, as I started digging into it very quickly, I was like, okay, these are the core rules that you need. Then you just take all the fantasy stuff out and you put whatever you want in there. It works really well. And I think that, I think that's what Wizards tried to do with 5th edition.
I agree.
It's they just they made it so ingrained into the D&D IP, it's harder to pull it out of it now. But I mean, that was the concept with the D20 system back in the day anyway. That's why D20 Modern came out, so you could play something different. So it's that concept is definitely still there. And I like that idea. I like the idea that we could multiverse jump riffs Rift style to all these different ones. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. We've got well, 5th edition, they gave us Space Jam, Spelljammer.
Spelljammer, yeah.
It's terrible. It was a terrible book.
There's actually and now there's actually a really good Spelljammer conversion coming out. Aether Dark or
Aether Dark, yeah. That was one of my first ever Kickstarter videos. So I was,
I really like it. I've had people be like, hey, like they're doing the same thing you are. I'm like, yeah, but it's cool. Like go play that too. Like I've had a lot of people even
that isn't doing what you're doing though.
It's not. He's taking it in a different path, and that's the cool thing. Like it's like we can all coexist. When we first put this out, and we put that cover up, and that cover's become very iconic very quickly. I'm surprised at how much people resonate with that cover. But people look at that, and the initial thing was like, oh, they're just doing Mothership with Shadowdark. I've already got Mothership. Why do I need this? And my response was, yeah, Mothership's awesome. You don't need us. Go play Mothership. It's good.
Yeah.
Go play it. But we're not Mothership. If you want something different, if you want a different flavor of sci-fi, then that's where we can kind of help you out. But you can totally play survival space horror with DarkSpace. We'd like to see people do that. We're gonna have rules for madness and corruption and things like that in the expanded edition. And one of our first third-party, because we do have a third-party publishing license, you can publish for DarkSpace. One of our first products that came out from a third-party publisher was very much a Mothership adventure. I think he actually wrote it for Mothership and then converted it to DarkSpace as well. And it's a great little sci-fi Cthulhu-esque adventure. It's really good.
Converted it to a far better. I don't like Mothership. I'm going to say quietly and hope the internet don't notice.
Look out.
And I love D100 systems. Warhammer Fantasy Role Playing is my favorite game.
Yeah.
I just did not bond with Mothership. I don't know what it was. I don't know why.
I think it's definitely a game you either go all in on or you bounce off of.
Yeah. Ran it, had fun, but then I was like, that can stay there for now. I've got no interest in coming back to it, and I don't think my players have, which basically means either I did it bad. There's always that chance, isn't there? Yeah. That it's my experience that ruined it for everyone. But Aether Dark that's more ship to ship combat. And traveling through different areas and stuff. Where yours is more about players. His is that seems very much world building, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he's definitely building a setting with that. Yeah, it's designed for that.
Well, I'm gonna run yours in that, if that makes sense. And even if they were, we could sit and I really love it's the Dark Letters from the Dark, and variety of other stuff of the books that I've got. But even Kaus is really nice about it, because I'm again, and someone commented on one of my videos. They were like, I can't remember what they said, and it was along the lines of, I don't like players to have too many choice with creating characters because you end up with Pathfinder, and I'm like, I generally don't care. If I'm running a campaign, I will really narrow down people's choices, because I don't want a bloody turtle in a fantasy, not more fantasy. But if I'm doing a one shots or a 3 or 4 week thing, play what you want. Go and have because you're not going to get that anyway, because parts of it's are random. You're not going to get the stats you want, but just go and have the ancestry you want. Be the occupation that you want.
And the rule system's so light, you don't get bogged down in too many choices. Like I get that argument because of rifts. My group in high school, we went all in on rifts because of our Ninja Turtles Palladium days. And so we went all in on rifts, and our GM had every world book that was out at the time and said, yeah, go make whatever you want. And we had everything from like glitter boys, and I think there was a thing called like an anti-monster that was like a power armor, but it was like carapace. And then I was playing a like this little like rogue scholar guy, and the power level was so wide that the first time we got into a combat, like I was like, man, there's nothing I can do because we're talking this huge scale. So I get that, but when it's just you have one species trait for your species, like my species does this, my species does that, or my archetype gives me 2 additional little features, you can support a wider variety. You know, 5th edition doesn't, because they try to stack so many things into it that then you kind of crumble under your own weight once you start spreading out all these different, you know, races and classes and things like that. But if it's very lightweight, if it's just one thing here and a couple things here, yeah, you absolutely can support that.
Yeah. So as a forever GM, using your words, if you could play in any game under any games master, what would you go for?
Okay. If I could play, so honestly, even though as much as I love and of course the easy one is, I would actually love to play in a Shadowdark game run by Kelsey. I have played in an OD&D original D&D game with Kelsey, but not her running it. So that would be the easy one. But honestly, my favorite rule system right now is Dragonbane. I just love Dragonbane. It is so much fun, and I don't get to run it enough. I've tried to get in fact, it's over there on the shelf. I've tried to get my home group to switch off D&D into Dragonbane. They see the ducks and they bounce off. They're like, no.
Also, you're rolling under. It's so wrong, isn't it?
No, it's
no,
good.
But that's the mental block.
That's the mentality, but it feels so natural because it's a better way to do THAC0 than THAC0. And it's I just love it. I love the mirth to it. I love the art style with it. That would be the system. If I could play in a system, if I could pick one, that would be it. Under a GM, any GM. I mean, obviously, again, you know, who wouldn't want to play in a Matt Mercer campaign? Who wouldn't want to play in a Chris Perkins game? Those would be great. But just as long as it's somebody that can do a really good job with the system, I don't necessarily care who it is. There's a GM. I'm gonna put a plug out for a friend of mine that I've met through GaryCon. His name's Carlos Lissing. And Castle Productions, I think is his publication title, CASL, and he only runs first edition D&D and writes for first edition D&D, and he is one of the best GMs I have ever played under, and he does not get the spotlight because it's first edition. He's not a 5th edition GM out there trying to be a celebrity, but he is a phenomenal GM, and I wish I could play him in more of his games. I've only ever played in one, but he's so good. He's going to be at Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo this year as a special guest, and folks need to look him up. So that's my deep dive plug. Like, go look Carlos up. He's awesome.
Yeah. Do you want to send me his details and I can stick him in the video in the description for this? So
yeah, absolutely.
Dragonbane I'm working on. I'm doing a conversion from another system and converting an adventure currently into Dragonbane. And some of the creatures are easy. Some of them are really difficult. Yeah. Because you've got to think of 6 different attacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've got to be interesting.
So fun. Yeah.
Which is great to play.
Such a cool idea. Yeah. It's such a cool idea that it's like, okay, they always do something, but it's not always the same thing. It's going to be something different, but they always do something. So look out. Like it's just a great idea. I love everything about it. I love that it's I love that it's levelless. That your character progresses naturally, but at a very slow rate. So you can, if you're doing a campaign, you could do a campaign for years with it. It's a cool little system. Yeah.
What you're
I'm glad it's back. Yeah.
You're gonna have to TPK your 5th edition group.
Yep.
And then just go, do you know what? You all come back as ducks.
Yeah, that's right.
And here's your rules. Yeah. Just make them be a duck. So what did I play? I wasn't a duck. I was a frog person.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I pretty much messed up every jump I ever did because I refused to spend my willpower points to do my frog jump because I needed them to do my spells.
Right.
Because I was the healer and there was only 3 of us in the party. And when you've only got 3, your healer needs to be able to heal when you need to heal.
Absolutely.
So I spent most of the adventure falling down holes because I was failing my athletics rolls. And they were like, just use your magic points. And every time they didn't die, and I hurt myself because I fell down a hole, I was like, see, aren't you glad? Aren't you glad that I kept you alive by me falling down a hole? But I wasn't very good at climbing either, so they had to pull me out of holes a lot.
That's fantastic. The frog that can't jump. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And there's some great ancestries in that one. The wolfkin. I love the wolfkin.
Yes.
They just look so cool.
Yeah, I wanted to be a wolf, but we randomly rolled them because they're in the rules and we gave it a go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a silly game.
Yeah. That's why I like it.
We've done the starter set and I think we're about to start the big campaign. Okay. But again, I keep buying stuff. I keep getting sent stuff. So I think my players are starting to go slightly mad now with me turning up every week going, got a new game to play. But last week you said we were playing this. I know, but we've got this to play. Yeah. So it's tough. It really is tough having options. But
it is. I mean, I just got my copy of Daggerheart and I'm like, my wife was like, you just wrote a system. Are you not going to play your system all the time? Well, yeah, probably. But look, Daggerheart, it's so pretty, I
don't know if you can do what I do because I can do. I work from home, you see. I can do, but you don't need more pairs of shoes. They all do the same function.
That's right.
But what do you think of Daggerheart? Well, I know there's probably an embargo, so you can't talk about it yet. I haven't got one. I haven't got one coming, and I kind of sat on the fence on it. And in the UK, sitting on the fence too long means I'm not getting one. Yeah. But I'm now going to the expo next weekend, so I've got a 5-hour play test of it. Okay. So I can try before I buy.
I played the playtest at Gen Con last year. And I like the system. I don't know if it's going to be the D&D killer everybody thinks it is, because it's Critical Role. But I think it's a nice little system. I think it's fun. It's fairly lightweight. At first it looks intimidating because there's all these cards. The cards are just reference. It's all in the same things that's on the cards are in the book. You can just copy it onto your character sheet. The cards are just there for reference. The dice mechanic with hope and fear is cool. I like that because it gives the players advantage, but also gives the GM advantages. Sometimes you can build those fear points up and then spend them. And that's cool. So there's definitely things I like about it. It is setting agnostic. It's got a whole bunch of different settings in the back of it that they've created, but the idea is that you could probably play any setting with it. I like that. As the creator of DarkSpace, I like universal plug and play systems. So it's definitely got some merits to it, but I don't know, all of these that came out in response to the OGL, Daggerheart, Draw Steel, MCDM's game, Tells the Valiant,
Storm. That's the Storm one, isn't there?
Yeah. So I don't know if any of them are going to topple it. I think they're going to give you more alternatives. If anything, Shadowdark has taken a big piece of that because it came out right at the right time, right on the heels of the OGL. And there are people that are looking at that going, oh no, here's how we can still do 5th edition without doing 5th edition, and it's lighter and cleaner and quicker. So like I don't think any of them are going to be a 5th edition toppler. I think Wizards of the Coast is going to do its own. Hasbro are going to do their own job of toppling D&D sooner or later. But
within 4 years, we're going to have a 6th edition, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
So
it is a fun system. I would recommend if you got the chance, pick it up. Very least get the PDF and look through it. But it's an alternative. It's a fun alternative. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got my alternatives. I've got Morkborg and I've got Shadowdark, and I just got into Thousands of Years Too Late, Old School Essentials.
Oh yeah.
And I've been reading that again. Why have I avoided this all my life? Well, I have because of Thaco. Because Thaco just makes me want to scratch myself. But it's got ascending and descending rules in Old School Essentials that nobody told me. Had they told me that, I'd have picked it up years ago. I'm flitting between those three systems now.
And that's it's the same with me. For fantasy, my two alternatives to 5th edition are Shadowdark and Dragonbane. I've already got my fantasy alternatives, and so that's why I'm like, I don't know, unless you don't have one, and you're a very big Critical Role person. I don't know if Daggerheart's going to become your alternative. It could be, but I don't think it will be. I think it will have its own niche, just like every other game does.
Yeah. But I think we definitely, though, we talked about a few years ago, they were like, is this it? Is role playing hit its peak? And it seems to be hitting its peak, and then it seems to be accelerating up again. And I don't know whether it's accelerating up because that's what I see, or Wizards of the Coast are managing to implode so hard that it's naturally moving people over, because 5.2 just hasn't appeared to have hit. It wasn't in their Q4 results. They didn't even talk about it, which that's quite an alarm bell. I work in finance. I know how reports work for companies. They show off things that do well. No mention of it. All about, Magic the Gathering and Monopoly Go they talked about. Nothing about
nothing about D&D.
What should be their flagship project. Loads of people made redundant.
The
two main designers walk within 4 days of each other. Something like that. That's not. We got to be careful what we say.
But they shuttered the virtual tabletop that they were pushing so hard. There's certain things there. I think D&D has hit its peak. I don't know if role playing has hit its peak. I think we do have this sideways slide to other things. Everybody that's still here in the hobby, I mean, it's not pandemic anymore. We're not all sitting at home trying to figure out something to do. And hey, let's go play D&D.
I try to. I don't like leaving the house.
But the people that are still in the hobby, I think they're starting to slide sideways and look for things. And maybe there is a bump there as they start bringing people back to like, hey, I know we haven't played since 2021, but I picked up this new game and you should come try it out. I think we do have a little bit of that. I don't know if it's the skyrocket that we see being much closer to the industry, and so it just seems like it. But I think it's there. I think there's still a bit of a bump.
We'll see what Stranger Things does, I guess, because that always tends to drive back. But I have this sneaky feeling the future of Dungeons and Dragons is not role playing. I think it's just going to be brand merchandising, breakfast cereals, bowls, TVs. And I'm sounding like facetious now, but it just will be. I think that they're going to third party license as much as they can, because Disney do it very successfully with Star Wars. Because
Hasbro is an IP holding company. I mean, that's what they do. They don't make toys anymore. They hold IPs. They make toys to facilitate those IPs, but their business is in holding IPs. And they've said as much. So that's, yeah, I think you're right. But, you know, Shadowdark Kickstarter, 2 million, like who would have expected that? I mean, like it caught us all by surprise. So it's, you know, that's saying something. That's at least a data point. You know,
it's still there. It's still there.
It's still there.
So there's some stuff to come out. I'm really looking forward. So I did the collector's editions of the zines as well.
Zines.
Yeah. I got a little bit carried away.
Yeah, I did too. I went all in on it. I couldn't help. I couldn't help myself.
I didn't do the full $400 pledge, so I got copies.
I did,
normal copies of everything. It was just, you know, I'll have the collector's editions. I'll open them, never look at them, read the PDFs. Wish I'd bought physical copies of what's in the PDFs because I can't read my collector's edition copies. So I am still debating because we haven't been charged yet for it, have we? So the pledge manager's in.
It's out. The surveys are out. I've done mine.
Yeah. I've done mine, but no money's gone out.
But you can go change. You can.
Yeah, but in my head, I've spent that bit. So I'm thinking. So payday's coming soon. So if I then get into a next month, I've got to add. Like I said earlier, I've got to have at least a book or two of the normal. Thing to sort of throw around the table at my friends. And I think I'm probably going to need the zines as well. And the Western Marches. So I'm already. Right. I've justified back up to the only thing I don't want is the spell cards because I never use stuff like that.
No, I didn't back that either. I'm hoping. I know she got a lot of feedback on the DM screen or the GM screen, and it sounds like the second edition one is going to be more useful. So I'm hopeful that that's there, but I don't use GM screens that often. Honestly, I have a tablet. That's my GM screen. And I don't play in person that often. My home game, we're all online. So unless I'm at a con, I don't typically play in person. And then I don't need a GM screen because I've got my tables all on my tablet. So I didn't get that, and I didn't get that. I didn't get the spell cards. But the books, I went all in on the books.
I have GM screens on my desk as I'm running games online.
Nice.
So I'm like trapped in with my mouse and everything because I need them. I've always used them because I obviously my reading speed isn't that fast. So GM screens in general are the most handy thing. A good GM screen, I should say, because there's some bloody appalling ones out there.
Right. Exactly.
But so you know, as long as all the tables are there and the handy thing, which is why I love Mockbook. All you need to do is photocopy the inside 2 pages and maybe the back 2 cover pages, and that's all you need.
Yeah,
you know, there's not a lot to remember. So and Shadowdark does that.
I was about to say Shadowdark kind of does that too. I'd like for DarkSpace to do that. It's hard to find a printer to do that that interior cover.
I suppose because all the Lulu versions they're white, aren't they?
You can't do it. You can't do the and drive-through also won't do it that way either. So like you've got to find a custom printer to work with that will actually do that for you. So
I suppose it's because of the glue seepage through ink. Whatever it's called, not blurring, but bleed. Is that
bleed?
That's,
yeah. I would imagine that's it. Yeah. So
and all we got to do
it's
now
an extra print.
Yeah, all we got to do is now buy a printing press because they're cheap, and set up our own. And then print it ourselves.
I grew up in a print shop. My grandfather owned his own printing company, a little small printing company, and I grew up in the back of the shop, you know, amongst all the presses and breathing in toxic fumes. But you know, he retired and sold all that off in the 90s, and I'm like, man, I wish I had the forethought to keep, you know, to convince him to let me keep all that, so then I could just now that we're, we don't have, great gaming printers in the States anymore. They all went overseas. Do that, be like this little small press print shop for gaming, but wasn't meant to be. I didn't have the forethought. I wasn't prophetic enough.
No, too busy trying to sell your comics. That's why.
That's why. That's why. Yeah.
There's your future. Because I've gone completely away from PDFs now, pretty much. Because I've pulled back into PDFs, and then I'm now moving away to physical stuff because I'm convinced one day Adobe or whoever is going to go, do you know what? I now want £300 a year for all your PDFs. Or
format.
What happens if they disappear? All my books are gone.
Yeah. That's the real thing. I've got like this cloud drive that has all these PDFs on it, and I'm just like, what happens if Google decides to, stop doing Google Drive for some reason? I mean, they've stopped other things before. So, who's to say they don't do that? So there is definitely something to be said for it. But at the same time, I'm not barring the Shadowdark one. I'm not backing physical copies right now because who knows what printing is going to look like. I mean,
so, I was saying, we get huge fees over here, VAT, shipping fees, taxes, when it comes over here. I was talked about this I bought this for Pinnacle Games, Deadlands. Cost me $50. It cost me £54 to ship to get to my house. Right, so in dollars, that's about $75-80. That's on top of the $50 I already spent, and I was like, I'm done. I am done. I am not buying anything else. Now, that, and then obviously gone all in on Shadowdark, and like I say, I think that's the first one, because everything else, if you're patient and you're not desperate, eBay, Kickstarter, Facebook pages, most books come to retail eventually anyway. So, but it's I'm only now buying physical copies of things I plan to run. Because I want it out in front of me.
And I'm almost positive that I've heard Kelsey talk about how they're trying to get an EU distributor, so there's not, for anyone that's on that side of the pond, that you don't have all these ridiculous.
Well, someone on Facebook told me that it's being distributed straight to the UK, so I won't get any fees and charges. So if I get them, I've saved his name, and I'm going to go around his house and ask him for the money.
There you go. That's awesome.
Oh, brilliant. It's actually been wonderful catching up with you. Let's
absolutely.
Just remind people where they can pick the book from. So we're looking at DarkSpace, and go and get it direct from your website. I picked up the book. I've shared the wrong thing. Hold on. Typical. Do you know one thing I hate about Teams is they've got the share thing right next to the leave button, which is a really stupid place to put it, if you ask me. So so go and pick it up direct at the DMing World, because and sign up for your newsletter as well.
Yeah, sign up for the newsletter. That's where we're doing all of the updates about expanded rules coming out. We did a May the 4th newsletter where I did conversions for the core cast of Star Wars. Those are the fun things we can send out in a newsletter. We can never publish that, for money, but that's the fun thing about a newsletter is we can send that kind of stuff out. You do get a Shadowdark one-page adventure if you sign up for it as well.
Just done. There you go.
There we go. But we're going to be putting out in the next newsletter. I'm going to be doing a preview sample of one of the one-page settings that we talked about, where basically what switches do I flip to get to this particular kind of subgenre of sci-fi. So I haven't decided which one we're going to do yet. I'm thinking post-apocalyptic. We might talk about that, and what how you can use DarkSpace and Shadowdark combined with some of the alternate play modes like deadly or fatality to make it. So be on the lookout for that. And
they can also jump on. We've got your YouTube page as well, so they can get you there. And then there is almost Drive-Thru RPG as well.
Just started a solo play for DarkSpace, the character creation. If you want to see how character creation is done with DarkSpace, that first video is up. And it just covers character creation.
Can we get your old newsletters? Because I'd be quite interested in seeing your Star Wars converted characters.
I'll send them to you.
Okay, all right, perfect.
They are New Hope level. Luke is a level 1, which is real fun. It's like the low level versions of them. When I sent them out, Derek said, "I want to see you do the Emperor and Obi-Wan and Darth Vader." I said, "Okay, when I feel a little more masochistic, I will do those." That's that's going to be a much tougher conversion.
Yeah, that was, I think, well, just ending where we started with West End Games. I can remember seeing the stats for Vader and Obi-Wan and stuff, and it was
Vader. I'm almost positive Vader is a 2-column page character sheet, if I recall.
Every force power, even force powers we'd not seen before as well. He was like, and he rolled something, and the first thing you looked at was how many d6 he got to roll plus his force for his lightsaber, because you got to add your force to the stat
to
and
it.
skill. And I think he was rolling something like 15 d6.
I think you're right. I think it was something like that. It was nuts.
Yep. No, but Than, thank you for coming on. Obviously, if you want to get DarkSpace anywhere, then say Variety. We'll have all the links down in the video description. We'll get you back on once the Kickstarter's ready to go, and or you've got more stuff that you want to come on, so please do come back on. Again, support him on your YouTube channel as well. So say links for that will be in the video. But if you've enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. And sorry that it's gone on longer than they always do, but these always do, because these are my favorite things that I do. So thank you for watching.